Welcome to Cooking the Books. I'm Frances Cook, and this episode is brought to you by Mitre 10. What do you do when you lose your job through no fault of your own, but because the world has gone into meltdown? Well, for a certain slice of New Zealanders, the answer seems to be that you create your own job. It makes sense because what do you really have to lose now? If you can't find someone else to give you an opportunity, then maybe you can make your own instead. And you certainly can, particularly if you take the approach of repackaging the skills you used in your old job and using them in a new way for the strange new normal we find ourselves in.
News Talk ZB presents Cooking the Books with Frances Cook.
I'm joined now by James Fuller from Henry. Now, you've noticed a strong increase in people becoming independent earners. So I'd love to know, how big of an increase are we talking here, and where are you getting these figures?
So in the last, I suppose, 3 months, particularly during lockdown, not only do we see a lot of activity in the market with people looking for independent work, but just by use of our service, our sign-up numbers were up by 260% compared to the same 3 months last year. And so we've seen a dramatic shift in the way people are earning and the way people are looking to make a living. And we know that, with any kind of impending potential recession in future, we know that always leads to a significant increase in independent earning. Traditionally, it always has. So yeah, we're seeing a huge rise in the number of people starting to think about how they kind of think sort of more about how they earn their income and how they can maybe de-risk some of their income over time.
I mean, it does sort of just break the chain of going to your job every day and things continuing on, right? You get this huge shock to the system. Potentially you lose your job, or you're on, reduced hours, or even you just think, I don't want to keep working like this anymore. I want to do something different. So if someone's going from full-time work to being independent or a contractor, I mean, how do you even start thinking about the skills that you have and how you could use them in new ways?
Well, it's really interesting because a lot of people, unfortunately, were in a position of, like you say, reduced hours or being made redundant during the lockdown. And a lot of people are now saying, well, perhaps I've been looking at this all wrong. Effectively, I've been putting all of my eggs in one basket with the so-called permanent employer. But perhaps I need to think about how I can reduce that risk going forward, look at different ways of earning that might even just be alongside another permanent job. And I think that's a lot of the time, we talk to people quite a lot about this at Henry, is that we say, look, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can absolutely supplement your income by earning independently. You don't have to suddenly wake up one morning and say, okay, now I'm freelance or now I'm self-employed, because the lines between self-employment and sort of salaried work, they're continually blurring to the point that people are going back and forth between them. They're doing both at the same time. So, we always say to people, think about your kind of your skills as being a bit like a portfolio, and saying, okay, I have a broad range of skills that I probably haven't considered as individual skills before. I've probably said, well, I'm a graphic designer or I'm a business analyst, but I've never actually looked at what I do within that. What are my kind of core things that I do day to day? And usually the next step from there is to start to say, okay, how good do I think I am at those things? How good am I at, if you look at graphic design, for instance, there might be particular packages or particular approaches that you're better at one thing than the other. And work out, what are the areas, what are the skills that I can apply right now, and what are the skills that I maybe need to do some learning to be able to take myself to a place where I would be comfortable kind of selling that skill to the public or to businesses. And so a lot of time, the first things we say to people is just think about what it is that you do and where your skills lie. And that's a great way of identifying new and different ways of applying those skills.
Yeah, and I think as well, talking to people is very helpful for breaking out of your own rut and your own experiences. There is a balance though, right, where you want to talk to people in a way that is respectful of them and still helps you get on your way. How do you broach these conversations, I think, within your network?
So it is an interesting one, and some people often say, "Oh, I couldn't possibly reach out to friends or pester people," and it is interesting, and it is kind of a Kiwi trait a little bit, that people don't like to be kind of brash, and I think it's a fantastic thing. But also we've got to have people who are sort of self-assured. You're going to have a little bit of hustle, a little bit of tenacity. But I think things like your existing networks, whether that's Facebook or whether that's LinkedIn, they're great places to start to try and understand whether there are people who need these skills that you can apply, or whether they're people you might have worked for before or worked with in the past, and really getting engaged with those social media platforms, with LinkedIn, with Facebook, is a great way of trying to identify where there are areas that you could potentially earn independent income. I know that LinkedIn, shortly after the COVID lockdown started, they actually have a badge that you can apply to your profile picture that indicates that you're open to new opportunities. And so there's a real sense of community that's springing up around people who are looking to change the way that they work, change the way that they earn. And you look at the sort of the NZ Made Products group on Facebook, and Sarah Colcord did a fantastic job spinning that up. And that just exploded over lockdown, with so many people looking to kind of show what they can do and apply their products and sell their products. And so having a network is a great place to start, to really kind of engage with them and actually say, hey, look, I am open to earning independently. Here are my skills and experience. And, it might seem a little bit daunting, but actually that's the easiest way to get started and pick up some clients. And, it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be kind of the be all and end all. If you do switch to independent earning, you can do it gradually over time. You don't have to kind of jump in with both feet.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because even though obviously what I do on a day-to-day basis with interviewing people and talking to people about what they do is quite different from when you're on a job hunt. But what is similar is finding those opportunities, because I find the people that I interview myself, and often when I'm talking to people before an interview or after an interview, we'll be talking about various things, and I'll quite regularly talk to someone and say, oh, I was thinking about doing something like this. I don't know if you know someone. And very often they'll say, I know a career coach who's doing amazing things there. I'll send you their email. Or I know someone who just set up a business doing this. I'll send you their mobile. And just having conversations where the worst thing the person can say is, oh, interesting. No idea. I feel like just being open and having conversations is huge. And I think this also really applies on the contracting, freelancing, independent earning side of things, where you just have to have a lot of conversations, throw out a lot of fish hooks, and see what comes in. A little bit, it's just chumming the waters, right?
Totally. And you absolutely have to back yourself as well, which is, we always say to people, when you're thinking of earning some or all of your income independently, do have a think about where you could apply those skills, and then say, well, these are the things that I'm most saleable for. These are the things that I think I'm most experienced for. And like you say, that the worst people can say is no, but you have to be open to say, hey, look, I'm looking for work, and be clear about what kind of work you're looking for. One of the trends we've seen in the last couple of months, and it looks like it's going to continue, is that businesses themselves are looking for more shorter term contingent work. They're looking for people on shorter term contracts. They're not hiring significant numbers, some of them aren't hiring significant numbers of salaried staff in. They're saying, actually, how do I hire for scale? And I've got, we're growing, or we need certain things doing. How do I reach out to the freelance contractor market and see whether or not there are some people out there who might want to come and do anything from, 8 hours a week to sort of maybe, 15, 16 hours a week. And actually being clear as yourself as, hey, this is the amount of work I'm looking for. Am I expecting a single person to pick me up for 5 days a week? Or actually, am I only looking to allocate 8 hours of my week to independent earning? Just being really comfortable and confident with what you're doing with that can make things a lot easier when you're actually out there looking to earn income independently.
Yeah, and I would say that we've done a previous episode with you where you talked about portfolio careers, and if anyone is interested in that, just go back in the Cooking the Books archives, and I think I literally called the episode Portfolio Careers. It's earlier this year, and we talked about how you can write things down and figure out the skills that could fit in different places, and I think that's all very useful stuff, but I don't want to recover the same ground. But it's there for those who are interested. What I would say as well, though, when you talk about people being able to have both and being able to work a contract for one person and maybe have a contract for another, or you have a full-time job and you also do some things on the side, which is all really good stuff. You do have to be a little careful though, right, in terms of not upsetting certain employers. Would you say people need to be careful in terms of the contracts and non-competes and things like that?
Oh, definitely. I think it's always worth checking your contract. If you have a contract with an employer and it has some sort of non-compete that says you can't go and work for a competing organization, absolutely worth checking that out. But actually, a lot of freelancers are kind of always in the business of taking on new clients and working with different people. And part of I think the benefit that you get and we do this at Henry, we employ freelancers and contractors for a bunch of different parts of our business. One of the things we really love is that they do work for other clients. And if you imagine they're getting the benefit of experience of other businesses, other environments, and they bring the benefit of that experience when they work for us. So particularly it's really relevant in some cases if if you think you're in danger of working for a competing client, just talk to your clients, just be open, have those conversations. For the most part, a lot of organizations that employ freelancers will be quite comfortable that you will be working for a number of people, perhaps concurrently.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that we keep coming back to on this, right? Is have those conversations, start the conversation and be open about it. And I know, heck, me too. I can sometimes feel really reticent to talk about money stuff or career stuff because it's one of those touchy topics, right, where you feel quite open and exposed. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get doing it, and you realize that nobody else has a problem with it, and it's really very much all in your head. And I think the benefits from being open and saying, I'm looking for opportunities, or, hey, I've just had another client get in touch and I just wanted to make sure that was no problem with our work that we do together. Getting used to having those conversations and backing yourself is so important for the independent earning journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, none of these conversations are uncomfortable unless you make them uncomfortable. No client is going to be upset that you asked whether or not it was all right if they worked for a similar company. No client's going to get bent out of shape about that. And I mean, we have these conversations every day, right? Because when we deal with the self-employed tax, people come to us and they say, well, I don't understand anything about tax and I'm kind of embarrassed and those sorts of things. But we always say to people, well, why would you know about that? Why would you have already got all of this knowledge about ACC and GST and everything else? So that's why we're the experts in that. It's because we can tell you about that. But no one should feel embarrassed that they don't know this stuff. And also no one should kind of take it upon themselves to just assume they do know it and say, well, I'm pretty sure I've got this covered. Like, that's why services like ours exist, is actually so that people can get into independent earning and feel confident, but also not have to know all the minutiae of tax. And I think that's, as long as we're having those conversations, and like you say, having conversations about money can sometimes make people feel a little bit awkward. But once we start to get comfortable and go, it doesn't matter that I don't know these things. I've had no experience in it. There's no expectation that I don't know it. If I think there's probably a lot of things that I don't know, but for some reason, money tends to be something that people are always a little bit taboo, to talk about, because they kind of feel like they really should know these things. Whereas just getting comfortable with what you do and don't know is like a really good place to start.
Absolutely. Everyone had to learn at some point. Nobody was born with all of this knowledge. And I think the wonderful thing about, the bright side from the current situation is that we know a lot of people are in new situations and figuring out new solutions through absolutely no fault of their own. So I almost feel like it takes off some of the pressure that if you're trying new things and figuring it out, well, so are a lot of other people alongside you. And we all know that the world's gone a little topsy-turvy lately, to put it mildly. Now, if you were talking to someone considering this, and the classic elevator pitch, if you had one main do, one main don't, what would they be?
Okay, I'm going to start with the don't. But my big don't I always say to people is, don't overcomplicate things. Okay, just because you're going to earn a little bit of money on the side or earn some money independently, it doesn't mean you suddenly have to, register a company and think about directorships and all this kind of stuff. Just take it easy. Just, start slowly if you want. Start alongside a permanent job if that makes more sense. You don't have to make the leap into independent earning all at once. So yeah, my big don't is don't overcomplicate things. Really focus on, having a plan. rather than kind of trying to worry too much about kind of tying yourself up in a whole bunch of kind of business knots right at the start. I think I think is at this stage, I would say to people, really expand your horizons. And the reason I say that, and it's really pertinent when we think about kind of post lockdown, suddenly, remote working is normalized for everyone globally. Like, we've become a country, we've become an economy that is quite comfortable with remote working. There are some people who've now fully transitioned to remote working. But what that means for independent earners is that you can now work for anyone from anywhere. And it was a trajectory that was growing and has been growing over the last few years, but COVID has literally hit the accelerator pedal on this. And so I would always say to people, always look beyond your local area, your local city. You don't have to be restricted by the place where you live as to where you earn your income. So the kind of advent of new technology, and we were talking earlier about suddenly everyone is comfortable with all sorts of different video conference software, and there are about 6 different ones out there. The fact is you can work for anyone from anywhere. So when you expand your horizons and say, well, when I look beyond Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch, where are the other places that might be in need of my skills? You've actually got a huge amount of opportunity out there. Obviously, that, and don't get caught out by admin, but that's a natural thing around not getting too overcomplicated, is, really just enjoy the experience of getting out there and enjoy the opportunity that's available, because it is really an exciting journey for everyone to say, actually, I can supplement my income, I could transition myself to independent earning, and I can actually take control of the way that I earn and make sure that, heaven forbid something like this happens again, I will be more in control of my earning and less reliant on perhaps just a single employer and the ongoing kind of financial stability of one particular employer.
Now for a quick word from our sponsor. There's a lot to keep in mind when you're self-employed, but thankfully Mitre 10 are simplifying things and saving you money with a Mitre 10 SmartMate cash account. It's so convenient because it works just like your regular card, but with the added benefit of trade pricing applied at the time of purchase. A Mitre 10 SmartMate cash account is also flexible. You choose the best option to suit your business. Available at participating Mitre 10 stores nationwide. Apply online at nzherald.co.nz/trade. There's a lot happening at the moment, and it's really easy to get bogged down in the very legitimate bad news that is out there. But the bonus is that it has removed a lot of these limitations, and one of those limitations is physical space. We have all figured out there's been about 5 years of learning in about 6 months in terms of remote working and technology and what can be achieved, and not only figuring out how to do it, but companies being more open to it. So you can cast your net wider. You can say, you're open to this part-time job plus this part-time job in 2 different places, and between them, maybe you'll end up earning more than you did before. I think becoming open to different solutions than what you've used in the past is hopefully a really freeing thing that could turn into actually a genuinely good opportunity from this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to have quite a positive disposition on things anyway, but I look at this and say, actually, this is an opportunity for a lot of people to positively change the way that they work. And we've seen this with a number of our clients at Henry. So for instance, big impacts to industries like personal trainers, for instance, huge impacts during lockdown, weren't able to deliver their classes one-to-one, but a lot of them have now moved online. And they've now started delivering their classes over Zoom meetings, which is actually more beneficial for them because they can deliver classes to 3, 4, 5 people concurrently that they perhaps wouldn't have been able to do in one-on-one classes. So suddenly they're looking at their business and going, actually, this is making it more efficient. And this is across the board. And I always laugh because I was caught up with my mum who lives in the UK, and she now, all of her Zumba classes have now moved online. So she has Zumba over Zoom with her and her friends, and they all have, there's one instructor who does, teaches this entire class online. But you look at from that instructor's point of view, they've got lower cost to serve. They can see 5 clients at once. They can still deliver the same kind of experience, but it's all done online. And then you extend it further and go, well, who else would want to come to this Zumba class? I could dial in if I wanted to. It's not really my thing, but suddenly, it's open to anyone. So I think it's about people embracing the kind of adjusted ways of working and saying, actually, these could be a real positive for a lot of people.
See you Zumbaing. I reckon you could do it.
No, my mum gave me a demonstration. It's not something I think I have the coordination for.
Hey, this is a time for abandoning the old limits and trying new things. Hey, thank you.
All right. I'll dial in for the Zumba class now.
Very good. Hey, thank you so much. That's James Fuller from Henry. Now, if you want to keep talking money outside of the podcast, or you have a question for a future episode, do get in touch with me. You can find me on Facebook, Frances Cook Journalist, Twitter, Frances Cook, Instagram, Frances Cook NZ. Just send me those questions. We'll try to get them answered for you. You can also subscribe to Cooking the Books. We're pretty much everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, including iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. If this episode was helpful for you, then maybe send it on to a friend. We could all do with a little money help these days. This episode was brought to you by Mitre 10. Thank you so much to our sponsor for your support. Until next time, have a great day.